In this lesson, we're going to create a block that has a custom contact form. This contact form is going to be able to email us when somebody enters their information, and it's also going to create a custom post type and save each submission as a post. One of the things that I find when I'm building websites for my clients is that a lot of them don't need anything more than just a basic form like this. So instead of turning to a plugin, I can use the form smart action that's built into Pinegrow and deliver something super simple, effective, and lightweight. Let's close this out and see how it's built. If you've been following along, you'll see that we've already imported this information into blocks.html, and we've already created our employee grid block. Now I'm going to just collapse this so that it stays out of the way, and we'll expand our contact form section. I'm not going to go into the details of how to create a form because this can get very complicated, especially when you take accessibility into consideration. So for this lesson, I'm just going to walk through what I've done to create this and explain things wherever I can. Starting at the top, I've got a div, and this is where we're going to end up putting our block definition. So let's just do that right now. I'll say block smart action and create a block. For my unique ID, I'm going to call this contact-form. And for the title, I'm going to call it contact form. The dash icon that I'm going to use for this is just called email. So rather than show you how I found that on the dash icon page again, I'm just going to type in email. And then for category, I'm going to say custom. And because we've already registered the category, we don't need to do that again. I can just select it from the dropdown. For style, again, I'm going to need to select that block.css. And best practice really would be to create a separate CSS file for each one of your blocks. Again, because WordPress will load only the CSS that it needs on any particular page, depending on which block is there. But for simplicity's sake, I just put everything into a single blocks.css file. I don't need to do anything with my editor styles, and I don't need to do anything with any of these other boxes. So I'll just close the options. Here I've got a form wrapper, and this is where we'll put our form smart action when we get to it. To walk through this though, I'm going to select the element properties and bring this down so that you can see what we're looking at, because I want to take a look at the form element. And this is very important. That form element needs to have a method of post. Then we get into creating labels and inputs. So for each label, we need to tell it what it's the label for. And we do that by assigning an ID to the input element. And then on the label, we say for whatever that input element ID is. So I've done that here for email. I have one here for a name. And you will notice on some of these elements that I've added some placeholder text. And then I've checked whether it's required or not. For a name, again, that's going to be required. And the type of this is going to be text. We've got our subject. Type is text. Placeholder, required. Our message. This is going to have a text area instead of an input element. But again, the same thing applies where it has to have the ID. And our label references that ID. And then we have our submit button, and the type of that button is going to be submit. And yes, this is a real button element because it causes an action to happen on the page. It's not just a link to another page. And then below that, I have two different divs. One of them is going to have a thank you message. The other one is going to have a message saying that there was an error. Again, this is very super simple. It can definitely be styled prettier. It can definitely have more fields in there. There's lots that you can do. So if you know how to build forms, you can go nuts here. For this demo, I'm just going to click on our contact form wrapper div, come back over to our WordPress actions. We'll scroll down to our global smart actions and select form. Now we're going to set some properties. For the form ID, I'm going to call this contact_form. And I do want to send that to email, and I want to save it as a post type. Under email address, this is by default going to send it to the admin email inside of WordPress. But I can override that by putting in a different email address here. For post type options, I need to give this a name for the post type. So I'm going to call this contact_form. And because we haven't used this post type before, we need to register it by clicking the register button. And I'm going to give it a name of contact form entries. And just like any other custom post type, we also need to give it a singular name. So I'm going to call that contact form entry. Coming down to our properties, let's expand this a little bit more so that we can see some of the placeholder data. We can customize the post title and the email title. So I'm just going to call that contact form submission, which is the default anyway. For the message intro text, I'm just going to say the default, which is we've received a new contact form submission. And then remember how we created our success and our failure messages? We're just going to select them below. So for success, I'll click on the div that holds that wrapper. And for the error, I'll click on the div that holds that wrapper. If I wanted to show the submitted data to the user, I could. If I wanted to use reCAPTCHA, I could. And all I need to do is put in the key and secret. This actually works very well. And if I wanted to call a function after this, I could. Let's save this, export it, and check it out on the website. I'm here at my contact page. I'll say edit page. I'm going to add my block in here, and we'll say browse all. And down at the bottom, I've got my contact form block. I'll just pop that right in there. Update. And view page. And there it is. Let's go ahead and send a test message. For email, I'll just put in my email address, adam@adamlow.io. Type in some dummy data and say submit. Thank you, the message has been sent successfully. Local WP comes with this thing called Mailhog that captures any email that goes through it. And we can already see that it's captured the contact form submission and it's put the data in there that was submitted. If we go to our admin, you'll see that we also have a contact form entries, custom post type. And when we look in there, we've got the contact form submission. We can open up and see what was submitted. Now for these fields, you'll notice that these are pretty ugly labels. So let's come back into Pinegrow and take care of that. And those labels are pretty ugly because they don't have names assigned to them yet. So all we need to do is come in to our element properties and give them names. So email, name, message, submit button, save, export, come back to the front end, into that contact page. I will resubmit another entry. And then when we look at Mailhog, we see that they have friendly names for them now. And it looks like I missed the label for our subject line. So for the sake of completeness, let's take care of that. And just trust me that it works. Now again, this is very basic. It has very basic functionality. It's not meant to replace something like Gravity Forms or any other form plugin. But if you're just looking to do a very simple contact form or something along those lines, it works great. And if you want to get more information on how to use WordPress forms, you can come over to Pinegrow's documentation. Under the WordPress actions, they've got a document for the forms. It basically walks through the same things that I've shown you already, but it does have a few extras. For example, it goes into more detail about using a CAPTCHA and creating settings in the customizer to hold your key and secret. And then it talks a little bit about calling the function. And lastly, if you do need to customize that email message and title and everything, you can check out the formmailer.php to see how it works and create your own code to modify it.